My mother always tells me to smile and put on a happy face. And then 11K people watched the CinemaSins video and downvoted it.
That's the philosophy over at CinemaSins, though, is always smile, happy face, positivity.
We got recommended this video by quite a few people, and we don't really cover CinemaSins videos, but it's freaking Joker, so we said yes, we're definitely gonna do it. The 11 Oscar nominations, we wait to see which ones it takes home in just a few days.
Clean sweep, all of them. Lord of the Rings.
If you haven't done so already, would love it if you could go check out our Patreon page. Weekly Q&As and TV show reaction stream-alongs, meaning you sync up with the time code. And those shows are Gotham, Stranger Things Season 3, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Cobra Kai Season 2, Haunting a Hill House Season 1, some other shows as well. And then there are shows where we have the stream-along option, but reaction highlights included for them as well. It's like when you see YouTube cuts for TV shows. It's what we do over there ourselves. And those shows are Supernatural, Hunter x Hunter, My Hero Academia, movie included, Death Note, Code Geass, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, Attack on Titan, and One Punch Man. He does music video reactions weekly. Go over to our Patreon page today. Would really appreciate that. Let's do this. Tell me if you want me to write one down, John.
Copy that.
You know, a retro logo loses its effect when a Warner Media plug shows up at the bottom of the screen. It's rare for a movie to include critical reviews about itself anywhere, much less at the very beginning. This is the whole movie, right? He tugs at himself enough, he can see himself as funny. The movie tugs at itself enough, vague setting, obvious references, it can see itself as unique. When you're going out of business, why would you spend money on a sign clown? You're going out of business! Stop spending money! Giving the movie a sin for me never being able to see the film strip search.
Huh.
The kind of street youth that would do this are exactly the type of folks to be quickly brainwashed into a violent cult by a charismatic leader loser that goes on TV and fights back. Or is that the point? Also, who goes running after a large group of thieves over a cardboard sign? Is he desperate? Maybe. Is he stupid? I guess so. Most folks would just go back to the boss.
Looks like it's made of wood or something.
The movie needs him to get his ass beat, and so he does. But I'm not convinced he had a good reason to run after them into an alley. That's what you get for trying to sell stuff! So far, this is my life story. Only instead of a clown costume, I was in a Michael W. Smith t-shirt, and instead of an alley, I was beaten up in the high school bathroom. Otherwise, totally the same. Goddamn movie, your title is so big it makes me think you have a tiny penis. Joker saw Civil War and wanted to engage in a comic book movie giant title war. Nearly a minute of cry laughing.
That's what makes it good.
Look, Joaquin is amazing in this movie. I'll take a sit off here and now for it. He rules. All throughout this movie, the clocks read 11:11. Is this movie a continuation of Us? Does the character have a doppelganger? Is he a doppelganger? Anyway, reading some stuff on the internet says the number 11 can mean anxious, shy, stressed, conflicted, scattered, which seems to fit symbolically. Anyway, all the clocks being 11:11 is a f***ing sin.
Why?
Surely they must be doing something.
What, lady? Is that really how mental health medicine works? By sheer math?
Please stop interrupting.
While everyone compares Joker to a bunch of Scorsese movies, the one it really takes after is I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore, in which every person Melanie Linsky runs into is an asshole, or dildos, or faces. If I had to walk up this set of stairs every time I went home, I would literally die. Also, yes, these stairs are real, and in New York City. And I'm adding 10 sins for all the asshats that have turned these stairs into a tourist destination so that regular pedestrians are inconvenienced. Also, I wouldn't touch either of those handrails if you paid me $100. Why does this apartment complex have a cage around the mail? These mailboxes all have locks and keys. This appears to be the slums. Why the extra money spent on a mail prison cage that isn't even closed all the time? In case you missed the whole
Interesting.
and the fact that everyone in
got
Gotham
no
is
door.
an asshole, and all the streets lined with garbage everywhere. This movie pounds you with Gotham as a place information. It's almost like all the city's news is being delivered 24/7 by Travis Bickle.
Thomas Wayne, well, so busy, man.
Please. I worked for that family for years. The least you can do is write back.
Super not casual Batman references. Super not casual. Also, if you wanted me to believe anything this woman says, you shouldn't have cast that horrible mother from 6 Feet Under. Kind of a nice touch they made Robert De Niro the Jerry Lewis character in this King of Comedy remake.
So everybody's heard
I
about
said
the
a sin.
super acts that are in Gotham now, right?
Look, Robert De Niro is a legend, and we're lucky to have him. But he is super awkward at comedy, and I can't imagine someone like him or the character he's playing ever getting a late-night talk show. But in all seriousness,
I gotta get
fair,
in Arthur's fantasy, he
I gotta
loves
get that
Murray's monologue, and Murray is flattered enough to bring him on stage. But I like to think Arthur interrupted him because watching Robert De Niro try to do funny monologues is painful.
All that sacrifice, she must love you very much.
This not real conversation goes on for some time. Arthur Fleck dreams about being an audience member called down to the stage on his favorite talk show. Meanwhile, I dream about ninja cows trying to steal my kidneys. The movie accidentally includes footage from Day 45, a production of the machine.
Yeah, I thought.
Subtlety in this
Yeah.
movie is when Arthur accepts a gun from a guy who regularly makes fun of him while everybody plays the fool, plays in the background.
Kenny's music.
Ah.
Guy said you disappeared.
See, here's why Arthur should have called his boss to report his ass beating, so that he wouldn't be blamed for not promoting the company he was hired to promote. Instead, he
That's
told
fair.
no one, and now he's going to get reprimanded.
Yeah.
The movie inspires Harmony Korine to make a sequel to Track Number called 32 Short Films Shot Near a Ferris Wheel. Seriously, this is the staircase to hell. Instead of going down, you have to walk up to get to hell. Poor Chip. Hey, remember when we briefly decided as Americans to cover our home toilet seats in carpet?
Attention to detail.
Half the fan mail I get opens with this exact phrase. Joker's talking. Talking? This is a great shot.
Where are the
This
real
movie is
sins?
full of great shots. Great acting, great set
Enough.
design. It's one of the most well-made movies I ever hated. Look, I
Hated?
understand Arthur's wanting to
Wow.
spell words, but why does he use half instead of have here and use the correct form of the word having twice? You can't have it both ways, movie.
Oh,
Apparently, the manager of the
damn.
clown rental place thought Arthur was the best choice to entertain sick kids at a hospital. This is a guy who has apparently gotten numerous complaints about his performance in the past, so sure, he was probably the best option.
Wait, please. I love this job.
So, did the hospital call security or something and kick Arthur out?
God, we're not even in Act 2 yet.
Until it got dark to call his
No.
boss from the payphone, or did his boss call him, and this is the usual payphone he reaches him at. I feel like this payphone scene is all to set up Arthur's subway shootout instead of being a natural place for him to be at this moment.
So, buddy, tell us what's so funny.
Making a parallel to Bernard Getz in this movie opens up a great discussion about Gotham's thirst for heroes in the throes of a growing sickness. But there was a racial element to the Getz shootings, and it was debatable he could even claim self-defense. But this movie strips away a lot of that context and makes Arthur a straight-up victim, and his actions seem justified, even though he does track down one of these dudes and kill him in cold blood. That said, he's a sympathetic character because we see him suffer. It's almost like we're saying the villains in the world all have a good reason for being this way. And remember, this guy becomes the Joker. I don't even know what we're supposed to think about that. Joker definitely fires one shot into the first guy, two into the second, and one into the leg of the third. That's four. Then when
Yeah.
he catches him, he shoots a fifth time, then walks up to the guy and shoots three
I
more
thought of
times.
this, yeah. I definitely thought of
Got
it.
holds 8 bullets. Man, killing gives you a lot of energy. How do you make your not really a comic book movie stand out like it's high art, and not some lowly movie we can't call cinema like Avengers Endgame? Have your main character take a time out and do introspective slow dances to a haunting cello theme. Tony Stark could have done this while trapped on a Benatar. Endgame might have gotten a lemon nomination. The scene is actually happening in this scene. This movie really loves it. Some stairs.
Almost as if our less fortunate
A
brethren
lot of stairs.
were taking the side of the killer.
How do people know enough about this story to have an opinion that the poor person was shooting at the rich people for a reason that would rally them behind the killer? The only thing people watching the news know is that 3 guys got shot in the subway by a guy in clown makeup. Even if they heard the other parts of the story, how did this get framed as rich versus poor?
What kind of coward would do something that cold-blooded? Someone who hides behind a mask.
Thomas Wayne here, scoffing about mask wearers, and the movie is winking so hard at Batman that it sounds like clapping. I know this place is called Pogo's, because that was John Wayne Gacy's clown name or whatever. But Gotham Comedy Club must be steaming for not getting into this movie, even though they
Oh,
were
yeah.
Ah.
Yeah.
How long would they let him do this before pulling him off stage?
I think the guy that did it is a hero.
So does he. Maybe even the movie does. You know, almost 30% of this entire movie is hallucinated, and that's only if it's not 99%. Why would this woman yammer on and on, year after year, about Thomas Wayne to her son, but never tell him that he was Thomas Wayne's son? She's like an endless fountain of Wayne information, except one part that I can't think of a good reason for her to hide from Arthur. It should be information a man in his 40s is finding out only because he read a letter not intended for him. I was about to say something about everyone reading a newspaper on this
Fountain of
train,
Wayne.
but it appears that the only people reading newspapers are on the aisle seat for maximum camera exposure. Oh, there's Bruce Wayne doing his usual preparing for the prom at the end of Twilight as he
It
follows Bruce Wayne
does.
through an iron gate. I feel compelled to point out that no matter what the people who made it say, Batman looms large over this entire film.
I'm Bruce.
Bruce what? Banner? Almighty? Willis? Valanche? Also, man,
Valanche.
that Arthur Fleck is
Hell
not
yeah.
an actual Joker. He just inspired the Joker, but then I don't know why we're watching this movie.
Thank you.
60 goddamn years old by the time Bruce becomes Batman, if not older. Inappropriate gate etiquette. Also, Jesus, even if Bruce is too entitled to have ever learned stranger danger, he'd still run away or back off from this kind of bull, right? Do magic, fool me.
It's all in his head, you know, whatever. Unreliable narrator.
Sure, that's how the saying goes. Is it Alfred former SAS? Does he get choked out by
Not in this universe.
without breaking free? Or are you going to tell me this isn't Alfred? Imagine if Arthur had come home just 10 minutes later. His mom would be missing and he'd have no idea why. What?
We got this tape from Poco's Comedy Club right here. Here's a guy who thinks if you just keep laughing, it'll somehow make you funny.
I don't know if this is in Arthur's head or what, but I have a couple questions about this scene. First off, did someone in the audience videotape this performance? Or was it Pogo's Comedy Club? Remember, Pogo's had closed-circuit televisions for the comedians, but this shot is completely different than the one that shows up on Murray's show. And this is the early 80s, so it would be hard to believe that they set up multiple cameras in this place. Yeah. Second off, while Arthur's comedy is awful, open mic nights in big cities freaking always have some awful sets. Plus, Murray does this at the end of his monologue, and it comes out of nowhere. This feels like something that would be part of a segment in his show and not part of the monologue. It would be a recurring bit, like stupid human tricks or carpool karaoke. Man, I just really wish they'd found a less sloppy way for Murray and mock
That's fair.
This is a hell of a stage shot right here. Kill the rich newspaper with
No, you're late night.
cigarettes and the 8-bullet holding gun. The prop master was here when it shows.
The anger and resentment that's been building in the city for weeks seems close to exploding.
The movie seems to have decided that the main issue going on in Gotham right now is the resentment between the haves and the have-nots. But that's only after Arthur killed those guys in the subway. Up until then, the news was mostly about the garbage strike and the super rats. Now suddenly Gotham is a powder keg over a subway shooting that really doesn't symbolize the struggle between rich and poor at all, really. How this incident became a spark in some sort of Gotham class revolution isn't earned by the movie at all. Clown goodbye Wayne Street. But also, where are they all getting these masks? However many stores in Gotham had them in stock surely ran out after selling a few, right? At least in V for Vendetta, V mailed them to everyone, which is preposterous, sure, but not as preposterous as all the stores have hundreds of almost like Arthur
That's funny.
barrier without anyone seeing him, find a conspicuously guarded an unlocked door, and make it
Yeah.
CinemaSins Chris tries to pose as an usher to get inside an auditorium. Let Chris tell you from experience.
The people in charge of all the ushers at a place like this will notice you walking into an auditorium, and they will come and ask you what the you were doing, and they will kick you out if you tell them a bull story.
He is 100% blocking someone's view here.
Exactly. I thought about that when I was watching.
Charlie Chaplin films. How does this really connect to your campaign for mayor? And if you tell me this is just a theater in the same building as the benefit, then I tell you that no theater randomly showing Charlie Chaplin films would sell out to predominantly old white men in tuxedos. Joker just happens to be here in the theater, which has the house lights mostly up right now, mind you, during the presentation of a film. See Thomas Wayne in the sea of people with his binocular vision, then Wayne happens to need a binocular so Arthur can confront him in the bathroom where there is no security for a billionaire that is currently running for mayor. Do I convenience that right?
Your mother adopted you while she was working for us.
Great, so in addition to mental illness, we can also blame adoption for his eventual snap and life of crime.
We stopped by your apartment today, but you weren't home.
The movie is pretty mostly set in 1981, but Wikipedia tells me answering machines weren't widespread until about 1984, which means Arthur is not only an early adopter, but spent a fortune on this device, something he and his mother do not have. Why not just have a detective leave a note on the door with his business card when he stops by?
Never really thought of that.
Why do you have to antagonize me?
You know, they've got some interesting points.
Yeah. I said to a black guy, since if it were legal, I'd have voted for Obama for a third term from Get Out.
I said I can release these records. Our performance.
What? But you can go get them out of the basement and read them to him? What kind of rules is this joint running with? I can't really buy Arthur somehow wrestling this file away from Carl, since he's a 100-pound weakling reaching through a slot, and Carl is a bigger guy with no physical deterrence, but movie's got a movie. As he runs with the records to freedom, I can't help but realize how little security this place has. I wonder if criminal evil people ever break out of here. Would a psychiatric hospital have a copy of her adoption certificate? I'm not saying it definitely wouldn't. I'm just wondering why Arkham has a file that seems to contain this woman's entire life's details. God damn, there were a lot of newspaper articles about this one incident. Isn't Gotham huge? Aren't there terrible mothers and abusive fathers in the news every day? Why is this one such a long-running story? Do you want to get committed? Because cry laughing on the stairwell of a psychiatric hospital after stealing private records? That's how you get committed.
Snot acting.
Arthur continues to find unlocked doors around a town that is currently experiencing its worst crime and is in a general period of unrest.
What are you doing in here?
You probably guessed that Arthur's relationship with Sophie wasn't real the moment the movie tried to tell you that it was, but now that it's admitted lying to you, what do we do with this? Now everything we've seen Arthur experience is called into question because of this Tyler Durden moment. Are there people inspired by his subway murders? Did the murders even happen? Did Murray really put his stand-up act on the air? And did he really invite him to be on the show? I guess we're supposed to think just this is a lie? In case you didn't know that this relationship doesn't exist, here's a highlight reel of the stuff we wasted our time on to properly hammer you over the head.
I mean,
And of course, we cut to 5 minutes of him
I-
laughing because Oscar bait.
I benefited off.
Yeah, I did too.
I kind of appreciated the clarity on that topic.
I was annoyed with them until that point.
Stop making noise when someone dies. Like, is it the monitor's job just to beat when someone's heart is beating? But when it's over, it's like, all right.
Yeah.
So go ahead and take a smoke break until you guys hook me up to someone with a beating heart. Might be able to ask the heart monitor 3 rooms down if she wants to go on a date. I can mobilize a new one called One from the Heart. That's in theaters now. Seems like a perfect movie for us.
Well.
VCR. This household spent tons on being early tech adopters. Jesus. Also, did anyone at the hospital have any questions about how his mom died? Did he just leave?
Please welcome a good friend of the show, Mr. Ethan Chitts.
So this is The Dark Knight Returns meets King of Comedy meets Taxi Driver? Honestly, I'd rather watch all 3 of those movies again than watch this Joker movie a second time. So Joker intends to go on the Murray Show and kill himself, as the scene suggests. But it's a red herring, and anyone that ever read or watched The Dark Knight Returns knows that already. Sadly, that's not very many of us compared to this film's overall audience, but still, red herring's red. Here's a sentence I never thought I'd write. The Joker dances too much in this movie. This movie saw Mel Gibson's over-the-top axe attack from The Patriot and felt compelled to outdo it in every way. And I can only blur the entire screen as this incredibly violent overkill attack goes on for some time.
You were the only one that was ever nice to me.
Yeah. I guess Gary never tells the cops about this.
Yeah.
I guess clean up all that
Yeah.
blood on his face, reapply his makeup, get dressed, and stroll down the hallway.
I feel like he
Guys,
wouldn't
it's the
tell
weirdest
someone.
movie I've ever seen. As Joker dances down the stairs, a famous song by the infamous Gary Glitter plays. And I have concerns.
That
Gary
is
Glitter a
true.
pedophile. Everyone should stop using his music.
I
In
thought
fact,
of
most
that
sports
as
arenas have been
well.
used like they did. This might be a stupid question, but how do they know it's Arthur? They only met him at the hospital in clown makeup. And from their vantage point, all they see is a guy with his back turned way downstairs dancing. And everyone is dressed as a clown these days because they hate rich people. Also, why are they even around the stairs? We've seen that Arthur has to walk up these stairs and then go down a sidewalk to get to his apartment. So they either went to his apartment and somehow just completely missed him, even though he's been dance walking for 10 hours, or the movie just needs them here. And you for asking. And they obviously don't know about him murdering Randall yet, or else they'd be running down the stairs after him already. Wow, he got to the train just as the doors were closing? Maybe this is a comic book movie. Everything that happens is so goddamn convenient. Arthur's running from the cops and makes it.
That's a movie trope. Come on.
That's just a
It's not
movie
a
thing.
comic trope.
Yeah.
Thankfully for him, the cops get beaten to oblivion, so he has an hour or 2 to kill before an APB goes out on his ass. How the does this guy know that this dude pushed Arthur into him? How does he know Arthur didn't push it? I feel like this movie was all, should we give Mark Maron a role? And someone replied, no. But then someone else replied, but I love him. So ultimately they decided to cast him. But
I know.
Just roll in the film.
Couple of rules though. No cursing or off-color material.
Doesn't Murray have someone who would do this run down for him? Get him, like this character being played by Mark Maron.
A book of jokes.
Every writer or comedian I've ever known
As a
has
book of
ideas
jokes.
they carry with them. This is not a reason to mock, but rather a tool of the trade.
Comedy is subjective, Murray. Isn't that what they say?
I have a bad feeling he's talking about CinemaSins. Oh, here is a clock that is not 11:11 right here on the Murray Franklin Show. There goes the consistency.
Everybody just yells and screams at each other. Nobody's civil anymore.
Facebook.
You sound like you're making excuses for killing those young men.
Jeez, does Murray truly believe Arthur killed those guys? Or is this all about the show must go on? I feel like on a live show, this would have cut to commercial long ago and Arthur was escorted out by security.
What's on his head or something?
Until the cops came for questions.
It's Gotham.
I don't think so. When you
Maybe the
cry,
producers don't care.
Wonder.
Society that abandons him and treats him like trash.
He becomes president?
beautiful.
This ambulance is being driven by one of the insane clown posse, and it's going to be the ex machina Joker needs to get out of this. But again, I ask, because I've seen these out of nowhere vehicles hitting another car across an intersection scene so many times. How did this ambulance know a cop car was coming, and how did it time the wreck just right? Or is this some kind of completely random happenstance in a world of chaos, and it just so happens to be Joker? Wait. You're telling me Bruce Wayne's parents were murdered? So, that's the end of this movie. It's pretty good, I guess. Would any of you have watched this movie if it wasn't called Joker? My guess is that you wouldn't. So, I guess the next thing that an independent production that has no chance in hell of getting an audience needs to do is somehow tie it into a family origin story. Just a guy riding around the LA traffic all day yelling, I wish only half these people existed. The end. Jesus Christ. his Joker car. Movie goes all Newhart at the end, showing him in therapy and suggesting maybe none of what we saw was real. Jesus. How long was he standing in that interview with Lady from Magnolia's blood to be able to make multiple perfect bloody shoe prints on the floor? That must have been a lot of blood.
That's not funny.
Does anyone want to switch seats?
That's just cool.
Welcome to the Tonight Show. Well, the sun is out tonight, today again. What a storm we had. Was that unbelievable?
Hey, what's your name?
You talking to me? You talking to me? You talking to me? Well, who the hell else are you talking? You talking to me?
This was really nice. You got a thing for swans? It's like a fetish? It's something like maybe we need to devote some time to.
That Matt Damon.
Thought about what you said to me the other day.
Yeah. No, it is good on it.
What you're about to see may disturb you.
Oh God, yeah, they. Yes, I remember that.
Swing away, Meryl. Swing away.
Money low. They call me Money Low, you know what I'm saying? Different paper productions, you know what I'm saying? We doing it real big. People will die. Starting tonight. I'm a man about
Neato.
Finito.
Well, I like this CinemaSins video. I quite enjoyed it. This was really fun to watch. And, you know, of course, CinemaSins, you know, sometimes they're just cracking jokes and they give them a pointless sin. Sometimes they're just really nitpicking. But there were times where I thought they brought up some really great observations and some really great points, especially in terms of convenience on a lot of things. So for the most part, it's like, I don't agree with a lot of this, but there were things that I think are worthy of talking about. And because of CinemaSins, I decided to write down like a whole bunch. You can't see it on camera. I decided to write down a whole bunch of numbers of like, oh yeah, I might want to talk about that.
Try
So
and
let's
guide us
see.
through.
What's the first one? The 11/11 thing. This is the first time I've ever heard of this.
Yeah, did not even notice.
Saying anxious, shy, stressed, conflicted, scattered, and that this clock motif is everywhere in the movie. When examining that as a little hint or clue playing into how this could all be in his head, I feel like the production design of that, other than that moment they pointed out on the talk show with that not reading 11/11.
Well, he's no longer these qualities by that time. So maybe the clock changed.
But there's a point to be had there because they're showing 11/11 here. They cut to a point where he's banging his head and it says 11/11 on that clock. So it could be a little bit more of a heavier implication that this is all just going on in his head, and that's why the time is kind of the same every time you check in with it.
Which
You know
I
what
thought
mean?
was neat.
Yeah.
Less a sin than just like a neat piece of
Yeah, it was kind of weird.
satire.
Yeah, why is it a sin? Yeah. Like that's a good analysis, but why is it a sin?
You
Yeah.
noticed something cool, but I guess you can only give sins in this video.
That's part of what made it funny. Was just going, but anyway, it's a sin.
Yeah. Sin number 13 is one that I've thought about. It's like of all the things the movie does, because I don't hate this movie as much as CinemaSins appears to,
Yeah.
but I have thought that that's kind of what makes the story unfold so easily, is that every interaction he has with other people is a bad one.
Yeah.
Like no matter who he meets. And that did take me out of the film a little bit, because then it feels like it's a universe where only bad people are around, it seems like.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a forced sympathetic perspective for Arthur, but it's all in his head. Unreliable
These are all
narrator.
fake people.
It's
yeah,
all.
He's just making up what he sees other people as.
Anytime there's convenience or just something weird, you just go, but it's in his head. You know?
Yeah,
That's why
yeah.
I like that joke they made about 33% of this movie is in his head, but that's 99% of it's not in his head.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
I know unreliable narrator is a form of storytelling. It just sometimes I feel like that term is thrown around kind of loosely nowadays, to the point where, like what they said about if he is not the real Joker but just the person who inspired the Joker, then what's the point of watching this? Like I'd be annoyed by that.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I want to accept this as a real Joker. I know there's this whole annoying thing about age difference. Wayne
It's
is
a
like
different universe.
Bruce Wayne's like -4 years old in this movie, so I get it. Still, I would be like, well, come on. If he is just a guy who inspired the Joker, then make that clear.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. And I don't know, maybe throw in one other nice character who's not the little person guy. Like
The mom was nice. except for all the messed up things she did.
Well, yeah. You know, eventually she hurts him again.
But then some of the, like, their nitpick ones I really enjoyed, like their number 26 about him going to the mail and there's a cage around there. A lot of times I feel like the production design and the way Todd Phillips chose to capture this and work with his team was more built around symbolism. And to be honest, we give directors a whole bunch of, Nolan especially, I think, gets a pass on a lot of things. Because a lot of what they're pointing out, I'm like, hey, that's a great point, but I don't notice it in the moment, and I feel like most people don't notice it in the moment.
And it's in with the aesthetic.
And the reason why a lot of us don't notice it is because they are doing a good job at the storytelling, to be plain and simple. But this is a great point of like, why is there a cage here if it's not closed most of the time?
Maybe
you know?
it is a visual metaphor for the fact that Arthur's inward and outward communications are trapped in a cage.
No, that's what I honestly, that's sarcastic of a tone you took with that. That could be it. Yeah.
That's why you throw every theory out as a joke, and if it sounds plausible, then you're not joking.
Yeah. I do gotta say, I know people will give me a lot of crap for this. It's something I did feel. Like, I thought Robert De Niro was committed. I thought he showed up for this movie, but I don't buy him in this role. I don't. Like, there's nothing about him that reads like a comedian, which is kind of strange because, I mean, yeah, he's a lot older now and he's one of the greatest actors of all time, king of comedy. When he does that big speech on the show, for the Jerry Lewis show, he seems very believable. You see why he was working so hard to get on that show, because he seems like he really mastered it. But in terms of this host, it's more like, I like Robert De Niro, so I like him, and I also like the idea that he's doing the Jerry Lewis role. Like, that's neat. But in terms of just the performance in and of itself, I think he does a good job in the serious finale interview part, but for every time you're checking in with him, like, I just don't buy him as a Tonight Show-like host. I don't.
Yeah, I buy him more as like a Charlie Rose type, where it's like, it's a talk show, but we're gonna sit down and do a round table, and it's not based on being amusing and funny. Because he's not very loose in this role as much as
he's not really charismatic either.
Yeah.
And if you knock me out, you got extra credit.
Sometimes the CinemaSins give sins when I feel like they're actually giving complimentary analysis points, which is kind of weird to me. When they're talking about the height of subtlety in the movie, where they play the song "Everybody Plays the Fool" when he's accepting a gun from a coworker who subtly makes fun of him. I don't really have much more to say than just, I don't consider that a sin. I'm like, what a fascinating observation, and kudos to the filmmakers for that. That's really awesome.
I mean, it's maybe unsubtle, but I didn't really super notice it at the time. So I think it's just one of those Easter eggs.
They were saying it's subtle.
I think they mean it's really on the nose.
Oh.
Yeah. They're saying it's not subtle at all.
What? Oh, come on.
I didn't notice at the time. It's like...
Yeah, I didn't notice at the time either.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Just because you know this song so well.
Did you notice it? I gotta ask that, like, CinemaSins team. Did you notice it the first time you watched the movie?
Or did you pick it out and go,
you ever did? Yeah, you know.
You had to fill every detail with the themes of the movie.
I gotta challenge that, yeah.
I do always wonder why he never even mentions to his boss that, like, people stole the sign and kicked his ass or something like that. Because even if he's not, like, the greatest employee, still, I feel like you would just want to tell him that. He's your employer, and you maybe could keep your job.
Yeah, but it's all in his head.
It is,
It's all in his head. The whole thing with the bullets when he shoots the people on the train, it's all in his head. First off, let's put that out there.
That's right, unreliable.
Anytime there's a mistake, it's all in his head. But this is something that I've heard a lot of people point out. I personally didn't notice it the first time I watched it.
I did.
Oh, you did? That's way too many bullets.
When he got out there, when he fired the last one, I was like, wait a minute. How big is the chamber on this gun? And that's something that gets lost in movies a lot, I think, is, anytime you have a gun like that,
that's something you can nitpick all the like, I feel like if you just pay close enough attention. But I forget, how many bullets are in a gun like that?
6, I think, typically.
Well, let me check my closet.
There's so many, I can't keep track of how many they hold.
I actually think the number 56 one, how they named the club Pogos, is neat. Because of the clown, you well know. But the Gotham Comedy Club is a real comedy club, and every time you hear Gotham Comedy Club, you think of Batman.
It would have been cool, real life Easter egg.
Yeah, that would have been really neat.
Yeah.
But is Gotham Comedy Club, because this is the background of Chicago. Gotham's New York, right?
Yeah,
right? Gotham Comedy Club. Doesn't matter. Gotham's a fictional city.
You know, Gotham takes a little bit of New York with the Chicago too. It's a few cities, you know.
I will say about the Bruce Wayne moment, which is something that we've definitely harped on. Yeah, I don't agree.
It's all on his head.
It's all on his head, right? Yeah, there you go. It's all on his head. Bruce Wayne standing there is ridiculous when Arthur's putting his thumbs in his mouth. But a lot of people criticize Alfred with the fact that he has a military background. You're like, how is a guy with a military background doing this? The thing that I'll say is, not every Alfred portrayal in the history of Batman has that in his DNA.
Michael Goff, dude, he killed it with the action.
And in this movie, there's no specific mention at all that is in his background. So for all we know, this version of Alfred might not have it.
Maybe he has a background as a bitch.
That being said, it's still kind of surprising that even if he's just regular butler caretaker, that he wasn't observing this scene a long time before any of this happened, you know?
And not able to, you know, get Arthur away through the gate. Like, he's got the advantage there.
And I like what CinemaSins did bring up with Murray's talk show featuring the Arthur Fleck comedy footage. Like, a lot of people, even when we saw the trailers, were like, wait, how is this footage here? We've all pointed that out. But the idea of, like, as I watch a lot of the talk shows, I maybe didn't watch any talk shows in the 80s, but it does seem kind of odd to just randomly have this footage of a performer at an open mic in the middle of a monologue, or at the end of a monologue, like the closer to your monologue.
The beginning of the show,
Especially when, like, horrible open mics, comedians bombing on stage is a normal, regular weekend thing. Granted, it's like absurd and out of the norm of how he bombs. I just appreciated that that they pointed this out. I loved everything CinemaSins pointed out with the entire theater experience. Like, just everything. Everyone having the clown masks, I thought it was really funny because I didn't bother to question that too.
Party City, man. Party City Gotham. There's just the only mask they have.
The only mask they have, but even like Arthur breaking in there. And I did think of that when he was the usher of how's no one really noticing this? Why are all the lights on? And but the main thing that I felt was a nitpick on my end, but it's something that I would totally be bothered by in real life, was when he is walking down the stairs and he's just standing there. I would be annoyed just seeing that guy being like, you're blocking my view, you're obscuring my view, or you're distracting my peripheral.
Yeah,
like,
you're one of the assholes in Gotham.
That's seriously, I agree with that, but also the whole convenience things with the bathroom, but it's all in set.
So, you gotta remember that one detail.
Unreliable narrator, all in set. I gotta say, though, a lot of people criticize the whole thing with Zazie Beetz being in his head and then the movie really hammering it home with what people have referred to as the Fight Club montage.
Or Saw montage?
I haven't seen Fight Club yet.
No, but it's been ruined for me.
Well, that's how they reveal it when they do it. Honestly, I can pick up on more subtle things a lot of the time because, you know, we're film enthusiasts and we have to sometimes do like heavy analysis on things. But I appreciated the clarity of the montage. I would have eventually picked up on it, but you also understand they're trying to appeal to the masses here. And even though this is like the anti-comic book movie, I still think it was a necessary visual touch, and I'm not bothered by it. It's not like someone looked to the screen and said, it's all in his head. They didn't have a dialogue about it. They still managed to convey it through a visual form, so I'm cool with it.
Well, yeah, and as a viewer, for me, that was probably the plot thread I was getting kind of annoyed by until they revealed it and gave that little montage, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, made it really clear.
Now I get why this character is written this way.
Yeah, see, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'll defend that moment. Yeah. Great point I didn't think of was Gary.
Why didn't Gary call the cops?
Why didn't Gary call the cops that he witnessed this murder? I did think it was funny how quickly he changed into like better makeup and cleaned up all the blood or whatever, but with Gary not reporting that to the police, to me, from a scripting perspective, I would consider that problematic. You could have even had something just with the cops knowing it, and that's why they're going after Arthur right now, you know? But it's all set.
Oh, yeah.
And a complaint that we've both definitely shared is the lack of using Mark Maron in this movie, especially hyping that he's in it. And then CinemaSins, I felt really hit it home even harder with the fact that everything De Niro is saying to Arthur, that should have all just been given to Mark Maron, right? Like
that's like what the producer or somebody would brief you on who's not the host. Like the host's job is just to warm up with you, you know?
Yeah, like, hey, how you doing? Develop some type of rapport.
Yeah.
But for a show like that, like network big, no, it would have been Mark Maron's job to communicate. At least Mark Maron's job,
because he's got to let you know that he's serious and these are the rules of the show.
Exactly. And I'm like, well, you could have made Mark Maron's role a little bit more pertinent if you just gave De Niro's at least half of De Niro's lines in that moment to Mark Maron.
Maybe they
because
thought,
right now he's just there.
Maybe they thought De Niro didn't have enough lines, so they gave some of Maron's lines to De Niro. And then he wound up in those 2 shots.
Yeah. Either way, guys, what'd you think of this CinemaSins video? Are you part of the like or dislike section? Do you take them seriously? Do you get mad at them? What do you agree with them on this sin count of? Did they point out anything that you had not noticed before? Comment below. It's a lot of questions. Answer all of them.
Is it all in your head?
Subscribe to The Real Rejects. Click that notification bell to get notified whenever we got a video up. Get accepted in the Reject Army. Irony! It's all in Arthur's head. Scuba Steve. Scuba Steve, we have mentioned many times being a horror fan. Main thing though is this guy loves to do graffiti artwork and he is great at it. Not great enough apparently though, I'll tell you why. I'm currently on a jury duty trial and boy did I try to get out of that thing by using whatever facts I could. Those lawyers really picked up on it. And one of the things I said in terms of crime, I was like, well, I know someone who kind of participates in vandalism. He lives in New York, graffiti artist. They didn't care. Nope. You're the perfect person to be on this trial.
We can sense your lack of enthusiasm.
So, Scuba Steve, I'm gonna ask you to do more harsh crimes. In case I get called in, I'm already summoned for federal jury this year. Jeez. Commit worse crimes so I can use you as a way to be like, you know, I know a guy who's like really heavily involved in criminal activities. Friend Steve from New York.
I support him.
I support him. He supports me. I'd just be biased on this case.
Because I'm gonna vote for the criminal.
This is a two-way relationship.
Pat has contributed to your shout-out.
Triple teaming, my friend.
But in all seriousness, thanks, Scuba, for being here. Commit worse crimes, because I could use some better excuses. Thank you, dude. And that was a true story I just told you, by the way.